to September. Glad everybody's here, and sure this actually works. Cool, awesome. I assume you guys can see the screen. So I do have a quick thing. I have to drop at halfway through, so I was wondering if someone wouldn't mind running the rest of the meeting through after that. I'll just drop, and the meeting should just magically continue.
I don't mind if you want me to
Thank
do
you.
that. The question is whether the system will let me do that, but
I think it will. Well, if not, it'll be a short meeting today. But I think as long as I hit leave and not end meeting, it should work.
Excellent.
Cool. So yeah, so the first thing that David, I think you added was to talk about how do we index security audit reports so that they can be more searchable or consumable and stuff like that.
Well, more specifically, I think that the metrics should bring in data from the package analysis package feeds work. Or is this a different subject?
Oh, sorry. I think those are two different issues. One, I think
okay.
One was about like, hey, it's great they have all these security reviews in a GitHub repo, but like, how do I search? Was that it?
That's a different topic. Okay, all right, yeah, that's a different topic. Yeah, tell you what, we just talked briefly, but we didn't record it. So let me just quickly add to the agenda, just so we catch up the recording what we already just said, which is we should include. Sorry, folks, I'm trying to type and talk at the same time. Security. What was it? So security feeds. Looking for malicious packages in the metrics.openssf.org dashboard. All right, now let's move on. How can we improve index of security audit reports so that other tools, particularly the score? Yeah, because the scorecards also want to see that, and we have to solve that problem too.
Yep.
So basically, they wanted to make an easy way to so that if you once you post something about a security audit, it's super easy to find it.
Okay. I thought. Wait. Hold on.
Yeah, by the way, one way we could do this is suck the security audits into the metrics dashboard, because the metrics dashboard is already live, and use the metrics dashboard as the way to index stuff as the API.
And that's what I thought. So NPM, yeah, we have one for left pad. So here, if I do left pad and I do that, question is, do I see the security review? Yeah, security review. That's the content. That's all the other stuff. So yes, so they can. So this is the current whatever JSON REST API for left pad.
Okay, so what we need to do is maybe just point them to that. Point them to the. Yeah, I guess where's the doc on the API for the metrics dashboard?
It's self-documenting.
Oh, I hate that phrase. I've never believed it. I think you should. I think that is a goal you should strive to, and admit you'll never get there.
That's true. But we'll do that for now. Yeah, we can improve that over time.
Okay,
but at least it's something that they can do rather than going to GitHub and parsing the individual files.
Right. I think that's expressly what they want to avoid, and I would agree with them.
Yeah.
So, all right. How's this? Why don't I add, since I'm the one who brought this up, why don't you just bring this on the issue tracker itself?
Perfect.
And
Yeah, that works.
Do you guys think it'd be helpful for them, or like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's in a very, even though it's like super accessible via the JSON API, like it's in a very like necessarily accessible or like readable, intuitive format. Like I don't see people like reading a review in that kind of, so like either they would have to figure out some way to automate and like, paste things over. Like I don't know what their plan is there, or do you think it'd be helpful for us to do something in that arena? Does that make sense?
Do you mean to make the URL more readable?
No, not at all. No, the like the actual security review. Like once they search, like once they like, use the JSON API, unless it's like they automate it in some kind of code and so yeah, like for example,
Yeah.
like I'm like reading that is not very
Oh, right. Yeah, no. I mean, nobody should be reading this with their eye, but if the scorecard wants to bring this in, they would just need to know, to look for this key, then grab the value. The value is marked down. So
automating. They're looking at integrating this into Score. Okay, I thought this was like someone who was just asking like, how do I find a better way to search for security reviews? Okay,
it is, but I think the answer is use the metrics dashboard, because in fact we already have to do that anyway. So why build a separate tool? It's already in one tool.
Right. Or just GitHub search. Because
yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can literally just go on the metrics page and search, and it'll just populate on that. Okay, sorry. Just clarifying.
Yeah, and that should.
By the way,
you can search right here and it'll show up there. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I totally forgot.
That's okay. Cool. Cool. David, are we good on that one?
Yep, we're good. Thanks. That's I think that's what we needed.
Okay, awesome.
And I have already posted an answer on the issue, so hopefully that issue is even resolved.
Love it. Next thing I wanted to talk about was this Alpha Omega project, which I think last time we talked about it at this meeting, it was just Omega, so we've added an Alpha. But I think I should be on the agenda for the next governing board meeting, not the one that's happening tomorrow, but the one that's happening like a month or so from now. I would like that to be the point at which I literally ask for money to make this happen. So we have about a month. In speaking with lots of different, like I think probably every work group now, and lots of other people, I think the changes are becoming less and less each time. So I think we're landing on something. I still don't know if strategically we want this to be a giant rock that OpenSSF invests in, because it's 2 more zeros than anything else. But I would love to get your opinion. I think, Amir, I'm not sure that you've been in any meetings that I've presented this to. So I'd love to get your feedback, and I apologize if you've already given it to me, but it's just too much.
Absolutely. I will look it over.
Cool. And some of it is clearly stuff that OSTIF kind of has muscle in. So I'd love to get your thoughts there. And I tried to stay a bit away from implementation. Like, this is about like, what are we trying to get done, not who's doing it or even who's paying for it and things like that. It's more like at least on the Alpha side. The Omega side is basically run the best security tools we have across all open source, and then pay people to triage and respond and do the right thing and engage with projects and things like that. So yeah,
absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, and I suspect there will be better ways to do things, but the best way to learn anything is to try.
Yeah, right. And so actually, David, I could use your thoughts on the best way to approach this from that perspective with OpenSSF and Ryan, you too, obviously, you know, like while there's some logic in asking in not trying to go to the well twice, because I don't know what that larger number looks like with any confidence. What I want to say is, seed this for 6 months, and here are options A, B, A, B, or C on how to do that. Meaning, we hire people, we, hire a managed service, a vendor firm to do it, or we try to pass around a hat to OpenSSF organizations and say, I need an engineer for 6 months. Can you make that happen? And kind of do it voluntary that way. I don't know what the right answer is, or maybe there's a fourth way. But I feel like if we don't get moving on this very soon, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think in the end, what you need to do is come up with a proposal and a number. And, when you come up with proposals with big numbers, there's going to be a lot of stop and discussion. It won't be easy, but you will not make a goal you don't try for. And right now, I think this is the best possible time. SolarWinds and Colonial Pipeline in the U.S. at least have suddenly made a whole lot of people stand up and say, oh, maybe I care about this cyber stuff.
Yeah.
I can write a check.
Yeah. And actually, that's I think a related thing, because you are as deep in the executive order as anybody I know. Would you agree with me that the executive order requires the open source projects that organizations use to meet effectively the same security assurance bar as the code that those organizations write themselves? Is that a fair reading?
No, it's not actually.
Okay.
What the executive order requires is that the government figure out what it should require.
I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. I didn't mean the executive order. I meant the NIST.
Even the NIST stuff is a little wishy-washy. The closest that you'll get to a requirement right now is the testing stuff. But if you look more carefully at it, I know the guy who wrote it, who's a nice guy. I mean, he's smart. But it's more or less a list of things you could do. It's not a requirement set. It never says thou shalt do all these things. It nowhere says must even.
Okay, wait, hold on, wait.
Go for it. I read the whole doc. Carefully looking for this.
So the thing that I just posted in chat. Now, granted, this is section 3, so I think 3 is informative.
Okay, which one do we look? Yeah, you have to be careful here. Which one are we looking at? Of course.
Oh yeah, no, this is developer verification of software.
All right, where is this from?
I'll post the link to it. There we go.
Yeah, you need to have. Excellent. Did you see the word shall?
Right. So I'm using this as kind of my backstop of why doing nothing isn't actually an option. But if I'm standing on super shaky ground, like,
okay, but how's this? I mean, feel free to quote that. But I think you're better off looking at page, PDF pages 1 and 2. PDF page 1 says guidelines. Okay, guidelines on minimum standards.
Yeah.
These are not the minimum standards.
Yep.
These are guidelines on minimum standards. And when you read the next stuff, it says, hey, these are what we recommend as minimum standards. Here's what we recommend.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Nothing here says you must do these or we will not accept. However, So it's not fair to say that this is an absolute rock hard requirement, but it's not fair to ignore it either. Basically, what's going to happen is if the U.S. government can really only impose requirements on itself without special, it can create regulations, but that's a different process, and that's not the one they're engaging yet in this part. But what they can do is impose requirements on themselves. And right now, I think it's probably fair to say that these are how it's going to distinguish good from bad.
Yes, I totally agree there. And this kind of number 2 here was got my ears perked as where they.
There you go. Serve as a basis for mandated standards in the future. There you go. That's right. Right now, they are still cooking. Okay. They're still trying to figure out things. And I suspect it'll be hard to say thou shalt never accept software unless it meets all these. But I think it's fair to say that it's going to look for these as a way to distinguish what it's going to use, what it's not, as basically a selection criteria, which is actually, I think, a better model anyway.
Totally agree. Yep. But I mean, for and this is, I mean, this is the purpose of OpenSSF is to tackle these harder things. As large organizations that sell to the federal, and we all know that like federal procurement requirements tend to bleed over into the rest of society.
Yes.
Because it's just how it works in other countries. So if we assume that whatever comes of this will become pretty much a de facto standard in terms of when you sell software.
Right.
Now, anybody
I think there you go. I think that's exactly right. It's not that right now these are the requirements.
Yeah.
Certainly not in the commercial space, but even in the government space. However, I think many large organizations have exactly the same problem as the U.S. government in the sense that they're using a lot of software, they vitally depend on it, and they don't know which ones they should worry about. So, and so when the U.S. government works hard and comes up with something, it may not be, it may be great, it may be awful, but at least they thought hard about it. And a lot of other organizations aren't going to put that kind of effort into it.
Exactly. So. Exactly. Which is really where I see Alpha Omega, the primary, well, the primary real benefit is, more secure, higher security posture, better security quality, open source. The secondary benefit is having an existing thing that people can point to and say, I don't need to do this assurance work myself because this assurance work has already been done and has conveyed a security quality that I can rely on to use. So it's, if it can't do that, like if Alpha Omega operate in a closed bubble with no information leaving, then I think it would fail. I don't think it's worth nearly as much as if it were if it could convey that assurance.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I think Alpha is really important, but Alpha can only tackle the tip of the spear.
That's right. That's right. And by the way, in my opinion, is to the extent we can, I think that we should encourage every larger organization to ask what's critical to you. If you're using open source for parts of that, go fund them if they need help.
Absolutely.
That's, I mean, in my mind, the best thing to do is because there's always going to be something that's critical for one organization that's not as critical to anybody else. But so I see the OpenSSF as more of it's cross multiple organizations. We don't need to all independently do this. That's nonsense. We're going to work together here. And then organizations can focus on it's critical to me, but not anybody else.
Yep. Cool. So yeah, I guess for, let's say we'll iterate on this kind of one more time. I'll make the, I think
Are you going to try to come up with the, okay. Yeah. So you've got some estimates of dollar figures and so on.
Yeah, they're probably off by at least a factor of 2 or 3 in different places. But just, like it's the kind of thing that, give me, $1 million will definitely fund this for 6 months. Like no matter, even at the high range.
Well, I mean, the great thing about this is in many ways it's scalable. How many, you give me more money, I can handle more projects.
Right, exactly. Right. And that's the thing, that after, like, the whole upfront stuff is the building the thing. Going forward, yeah, if you want, I mean, it's, that budget for that many people, if you want to multiply that 10x, multiply all the number, just add a 0. But yeah, this should scale with that. And the other kind of good feedback that came up was, hey, like, shift left, like go to the developer themselves, best practices,
right,
better, like all the other stuff that OpenSSF is already, well, some of it that OpenSSF is already doing, other parts is clearly in the OpenSSF mission. So I don't think any of this stuff precludes work. And ideally, we never find anything because static analysis has already been run and they've been fixed, and the developers, it's all done already.
Right.
In which case, we might feel sad at wasting money in building it, but we know that we're secure. And of course,
no, you haven't wasted it, even if you don't find it, because it gives you confidence that this project's doing okay. What you're paying for is confidence. Either you find problems and you fix them, or you don't find problems, in which case, well, either your process for finding problems was bad, or the project's doing pretty well, and hopefully it's the latter.
Yeah.
If you're finding problems in other projects, that gives you credibility that you have confirmed that this one's doing okay.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool. I guess I think that the budget should include a little money to make sure that when you leave, they're more likely to continue. Things like, they're going to implement the stuff in the CI best practices badge and the scorecards, that they're going to, do various, basically make sure that when you leave, you're going to leave with some process changes in place. I'm not sure how much you need to budget for that. You probably should budget a little bit. I don't think it's a lot. I think it's budget dust compared to a security audit. But I think you should make sure you include that. If you're going to audit something, you shouldn't leave it without making sure it's got some stuff in place. I mean, you want to burn down vulnerabilities and leave it in a situation where there's fewer going to likely end up there.
Yeah. Actually, would this apply to alpha, mega, or both? Because if we're just dropping in with a pull request fix for a vulnerability, I don't know that we have. We could certainly have like canned content, which is like, hey, you may want to consider X, Y. If you see you're on GitHub, so click this button to enable the thing, and things like that. For the for alpha, yeah, a lot of that relationship will be like, how do you make your process better so that.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. So maybe alpha is where you really focus that. I think it'd be great if we could work on doing that for Omega, but I see your point. That may be a little far.
Yeah.
You could probably put in some pull requests. I mean, a cheap pull request is assign them a badge ID and then propose a README that adds that.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been very much focused on the badging for consent. We don't add you unless you say okay. So
I think we need to be careful there. I do need to drop, so let me drop. David, you got the rest of the meeting?
Sure.
Good. Awesome.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you all.
Okay, so we have a small item and a big item. Let's do the small one real quick, if you don't mind. I just had a question for everybody. The CI Best Practices badge doesn't currently have a link to metrics, openssf.org. I don't think that should be that hard, and that would give another way for people to find the metrics dashboard. Does anybody see any problems or have any particular tips on how we should do or not do that? No suggestions? Matt, you're usually have an opinion on something on stuff.
Well, I'm also eating my lunch, so.
Oh well. Opinions stop when lunch is eaten. Oh, I'll mark that down.
I'll be candid that the metrics dashboard is not on my high priority radar, so I really haven't given it a look other than what's been presented at meetings. So no opinion.
No opinion. Okay. Amir, I mean, obviously it depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. I wonder if, as part of the best practices badge, when projects are signing up, I'm assuming they put in a bunch of information, right?
Yes.
I wonder
in
if there
particular
could
the repo for the URL of the repo.
Okay. And I wonder if that could just be like an additional data field, like, for like supplemental links, it could be a link to the security scorecard or.
Oh, no. I have a very different idea on this.
Okay.
We for the best practices badge, there's there's a number of questions on it. It's 66 for passing, and you can type in a whole bunch of stuff. But darn it, we do our best to not make people enter data unless we have to.
Mhm.
No, absolutely no intent to do that. In order to get onto the best practices badge at all, you have to provide at least one URL for either the repo or the homepage. It won't even let you create a badge if you don't give it one of those two pieces of information. Ideally, we want both, but you have to have at least one. And that should be enough for a search on the metrics dashboard. So, for any, as soon as you create a badge entry, we can create a link to the metrics dashboard that says, hey, search for this. And so when they click, they'll automatically engage a search and go to whatever was found, which may be a list.
Okay.
And that means that I don't have to ask the users to do anything. They just click and gloriness happens. And really, that's, I think, where we can minimize people's effort in general. I mean, they've got enough to do. So I think that should be adequate for purpose. Now, the only problem with that is, there are a couple of cases where you might end up with, where the search might produce multiple results. I don't think that that's a serious problem though, because we have for almost all projects, give us the repo URLs, not just the homepage. And that is quite distinct and unique. So I view repo URLs as the closest thing to an identifier for a project. And so for most projects, we'll use that as the search and then no problems. If that doesn't work, then we have to use the home pages and then life can get a little complicated. But for most folks, it's not going to be a real issue.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's a good practice. Let's try.
Okay. All right. So let's move on. I know Matt, you're gonna have to wake up now because I know you care about this one.
I'm not asleep.
Oh, I can't see you've hidden your face while eating, so I can't tell what you're up to. So I modified the title and the notes for security.yaml because I think this is no longer a security.md file. It's something else, and maybe it's not security.yaml. But
I guess my concern is that we acknowledge, I think at some point in passing about, I don't want the name to trip us up. I don't know if there was a discussion that I missed about some other group decided to create their own security.yaml file. But I think in general, I worried initially about, and again, about collisions. So I think that, I think what I'd love us to see, you know, much. My general themes are determinism, and transparency. You know, that's what I'm going for. So in terms of, you know, if the OpenSSF is getting collisions already, maybe we should agree jointly as OpenSSF if we're going to create artifacts that reside in GitHub repos or whatever, that or in the same source code management systems, that we should have some domain-centric naming scheme, you know, and not shy away from adding OSSF as a domain name, you know, much like a mini URI, if you will. So
right. Well, you know what? Making sure that the names are clear and not confusing, I think, is a naming concern. And so I did something crazy. I used a Google search. How come I can't type? Is security.yaml confusing? And there is something else. Symphony uses this for.
Oh yeah, I mean, I said initially when I said that if you go to secure.md for my Apache project, it talks about how you secure workflows inside the project, inside the actual framework, not externally. It's not about how we secured the actual project at all. So I'm suggesting that, much like we do in, you know, an XML namespace notation or URI scheme shortcuts abbreviation, that we somehow incorporate OSSF as a scheme name, and we use that, we adopt that into whatever file name we pick to get past it. So
I actually don't like the idea of including OpenSSF in the name, because I fear that will imply that the project using it is part of OpenSSF, which is not the intent. I know that's not the intent, but I fear that that's going to lead to confusion also.
Yeah, I'm sorry for stepping on you, but you know, I've heard you say it before, and I disagree completely. If you go to any GitHub repo, the practice is, as you add automated tooling, whether it be Git or white sources, twisted flag, any type of scanning tools, any types of workflow tools, what they do is they always add a dot file, and they're not afraid of naming it after the tool itself or the organization. So I think that's in line with what the trend is and what the norm is going forward.
Yeah, I've actually seen a lot of pushback against that. For example, there's a big trend about calling things GitHub Actions, and I don't know if you've seen all the pushback about, oh, that means that GitHub owns it, and it's a GitHub licensed product, and we're actually seeing a lot of problems because of that.
Talking about the file level, not claiming things are GitHub Actions necessarily, but yeah.
Yeah. So.
But I mean, it's not about, we're not trying to brand it. I think it's more of a branding issue. We're actually literally saying this is a standard that we'll probably be producing at a work group at OpenSSF, and that we're unambiguously qualifying it through a scheme name, you know, a file name scheme, that it has OpenSSF. And I don't see anybody running it with it like a GitHub action. We're not creating an ecosystem around it, and people are not going to run off and use it for other nefarious purposes.
All right. Anybody else have any opinions? I mean, I have an opinion. It doesn't make me right.
Well, basically, these are configuration files, so that's what they are. The configuration files.
I see both opinions. Given that this is kind of under the direction, or kind of, you know, the main discussion for this is happening, you know, at OpenSSF meetings, I think it's safe to say it's associated with OpenSSF, and having a consistent naming schema is always a good practice. So as long as it's consistent, but I could see both sides, but I would probably lean towards, if it's an OpenSSF themed tool, maybe having it in the name somewhere.
Okay, so so let's come up with a name. It can change later, but clearly security MD is not working. Security.yaml, we have concerns. Can we come up with at least a better working name, and we can revise later?
I've always had mentally pictured OSSF-security .yaml. Just we could use it. I think dash is the most accessible character to add a separator between the foundation, the leading scheme name, dash, whatever the sub project might be, or the sub utility would be.
Yeah, I don't know about dash versus underscores, but
oh no, definitely not underscores.
Definitely not underscores. Oh, why is that?
That's so 90s.
So 90s. Well, the thing is, dash doesn't work as an identifier in many languages, whereas underscore pretty much always does.
Well, I was picking something that's compatible with UI, with typical URI schemes. I would say a dot, add an extra a dot in front of it and dot between, but I thought that might be, too that because what we're doing is a configuration file. So dot implies it's part of a process or workflow. Right?
Well, dot also implies it's a subtype. So I would ask, well, what's the what's in that MD? So like a tar.gz file is a compressed tar file.
Yeah,
so I don't think you want to use dots.
I don't want to get up in minutia, but I think that this is a discussion we might need. I think that it goes with branding, and it goes making sure that people see that consistently. Is that other people, if we create OSF scorecard or OSSF whatever tools we have, that we use the same scheme. I think it's a higher order discussion, to be honest with you. So.
That may be. How is this? I think right now we need a name so that we can keep talking about other things. How's that? So why don't
OSSF separator character security.yaml.
Oh, I think, how's this? Why don't we just call it OSSF-security.yaml, OSSF and security in uppercase, and we can change this later. But this at least, how's this? It at least is unique. I still have my concerns about this is at least unique. And we can change it later, but as we start to clarify its scope, we've ended up needing a new name. Okay, so names.
As long as we're adding that scheme part of it, I'm completely happy.
All right. So name of file name changed for now. For now, at least, right? Okay, so that's one of those things you basically need to have a discussion for. Oh, I'm hearing an echo. Does anyone else hear an echo?
Briefly there, but it went away.
Okay, all right. Very odd. Okay, whatever the echo suppression system was, briefly got confused, and now we're okay. All right, so we've written some text here and some tweaks. We only have 15 minutes left. What can we usefully accomplish in the next 15 minutes? Oh, and by the way, I'm adding OSS everywhere.
David, do you want to share where you're at in the document? Just for share your screen, show your.
Sure, I can do that. Hold up, I got to close up some other windows because I don't think there's anything super secret here, but just in case somebody sent me something that they didn't want public, I want to make sure I honor that. All right. Enter full screen. No, that's not what I mean. Ooh, can I share my can I share my screen? Aha, I can. Okay, well, there's our notes, and we have really drilled into this. Okay. All right, so we've we've made some attempts at doing this. I tweaked, as you can see, the title here, the title in the file name, and the title in this working name here. And we've got some usage cases, and off we go, and a spec. We really, there are obviously things that need to be dealt with here. I don't know how you want to proceed on this, but maybe what we need to do is come up with kind of that minimum viable product. There's a whole lot of things we could do. What's the MVP?
Yeah, so my MVP is something that can satisfy what I've been calling the general profile. And I think grounded in a structure where we have a tuple that provides the location to find specific documents. Which practices, which documents that we're trying to find that are important to scorecard, or in general, for if you want to publish them or locate them uniformly. What's the base set information we want people to have determinism on, in terms of where's my security vulnerability reporting process, where do I where I handle these things, what are those topics, what are those keywords,
right.
What are the key
in fact, yeah, I think that's the key. Is I think it's good to think broad because you want it to grow, but I think an MVP, as much as possible, needs to be specific. We should be able to answer the question, did this meet the stated MVP or not? So for grading scorecard, right? And we could even say the CI best practices badge, although it has another data source, the humans themselves, where a scorecard doesn't. So I would say the one that needs it most is scoring. Help. How's this, people? Maybe we should more specific. Override. Propose overrides. Rides for scorecard data and find documents for, and you started listing a couple, Matt. I think that's a go for. Let's see here. One, how to report vulnerabilities. Is that what you said?
Well, I think that, I don't know where I typed it in meeting notes in past weeks or whatever, but
there's a whole lot below. But I think the problem is it's a big one.
So basically, it's about, I guess I'm in a weird mental state, but it goes back to when I created an auditing standard. It goes back to being unambiguous. So as an auditor, if I'm coming in to find something, it's like the who, what, when, why, where, how, so that we create a consistent data structure that, regardless of the security topic, the security matrix, whatever you want to call it, based upon your scorecarding system, that whatever it is, you can you basically have you have a name for it, and it's a key name, and then you have a description for it, and you have perhaps a link. You have a way to locate a link that shows you what the word process is. You have the ability to send a link to show how it's automated or what tooling is done, and you have some type of structure that perhaps tells you, here's my process, I followed it using these tools, and here's my proof at the end. Here's how I test to it. What's the proof evidence at the end? So everything I think we do should have that in mind. I think that fits very well, dovetails very well into what I'm trying to bring into this, which is try to figure out how we show as an organization, a foundation, that the scorecarding tool and what we're grading you against, can be mapped eventually to SALSA. So we have a risk trust framework, and we can prove that scorecard is following that risk trust framework, and that the structure and organization of those things are expressed in this file. And it's unambiguous. Like, here's my input, here's my process. I prove that I have tools that programmatically can follow and enforce the process. And then we also have the attestation records. And that fits very well with SigStore as well. Like, so, where do I put my attestation records in Recore? Where do I put my public keys in Recore? You know, wherever it might be,
Right.
it's not Recore.
I get the broader vision. I guess the question is if you had to limit it to a couple, because just providing data doesn't do anything unless you've the right data and it's actually used by somebody. So I think
I'm thinking schema. If this document is a schema, I'm just trying to establish what I consider to be the reusable schema that will, you know, that will work for us and be extensible, will allow us to extend this into other profiles.
Yeah, whereas I want to drill down to give me a couple specific elements in the schema, so that you know, I was briefly involved in a data schema in a oh drat, the word is now escaping me, probably because I'm just trying to prevent bad memories, you know, but we're going to model everything in the universe. I mean, that's not how they said it, but
no, I'm not trying. No, I don't want to.
I know you're not. I know, but I want to try to go the other direction, which is
no. I'm just throwing that. I'm just throwing it out there, saying let's put a spitball schema up there that, you know, has those three or four elements, the tuple or whatever, and then try and see if we can let's run the examples through it and see how we'd fill out those fields. You know.
Okay. All righty. I'm not sure where to push next then, though. Matt,
I mean,
what's what do you think the next step would be then?
Well, I mean, I remember, and we scrolled past it, I think you had some discrete examples. You know, maybe we could try to express some of those things in this. I say tuple, but maybe it's more than three. But
right.
So maybe try to express it and figure out how we create if we have a pattern that can accommodate the examples that you had earlier, or somebody put in earlier.
Okay. So we've got, by the way, we've got all this dashed out, and then do we need the JSON form? I would propose, at least for now, let's not try to show both JSON and YAML, because then we have to keep them in sync.
I don't care.
Okay. I mean, if we later on want to generate JSON from YAML, there are tools that'll do that fast. But I want to only edit one thing at a time, because otherwise I don't, you know, they'll go out of sync. Okay, so I don't even know who. I think this was Michael who tried this first cut, and I don't know if I believe it or not. But that's the you know, this is what he was trying to.
Yeah, I prefer YAML since it's a superset of JSON. So YAML is easier to read.
Yep, my theory also, especially since this is probably going to be read by humans, not just machines. And I can see humans editing this even. I'm sure some people go, but people edit YAML all the time. Okay. 5 minutes. I don't know that we have enough time to really drill in.
No, I mean, I'll be honest, no, probably. That's why I've been lobbying for the weekly calls, so we can make grounds. Hopefully we'll hit, people are getting interested now that we have actual, groundbreaking work that we're doing in this group. So we're gonna have to figure out how we best bring new people in and inform them of our work without resetting every week. So I know that the first working session kind of got derailed because we had somebody from Google that I'd never seen before come in and wanted to revisit the entire use case for why we were doing this. So we need to figure out how to do that as well. So.
Well, a little bit of that is probably inevitable when you start a new project.
So I think that this is super important. That I think this is the binding document that will show how all these technologies, OpenSSF, can work together. I really do. And so I'm going to commit whatever extra time is needed. If I'm not have some executive meeting I got to go to, I'll make time for this.
Okay, so how's this? Maybe what we ought to do is create a Google poll, and I mean, if weekly meetings are what's necessary to make some real progress, frankly, makes sense to me. Who else would be interested in this? I'm guessing Michael's interested, even though he's not here right now, especially since he wrote some of these other things. Amir or some others, who else would be interested in this?
I wonder if anybody from the best practices work group.
Likely. And frankly, the scorecard folks, since I think that's the short term is specifically, probably ought to get involved.
100% for both those. Yeah.
Yeah. So so let's see here. I'm switching back over here to notes. So let's see here. So we need to have more meetings is not exactly what I mean here. We need to have.
I call them I think working sessions. The way I used to call them in my old work groups.
More working sessions specifically focused on this, say once a week. Okay.
Yeah.
And need to get the best practices working group and scorecards folks involved. By the way, I would also see our best practices badge mailing list maybe as well.
And thank you for diligently documenting all these things. I think that.
Well, thank you.
No, I think this helps if onboarding people onto this work. Like I said, I don't want to. I mean, I was so looking forward to the call we had the week previous, and then we never even talked about this. We ended up just revisiting use cases and stuff like that. It was I was very disappointed. So I think having this documentation to point to,
that is the goal. That is the goal. So now, we oh, you want to know about that? Go read that stuff. We don't have, we can move on. So here's the thing. I think number 2 then is we need to have a doodle poll to set up new time.
Works.
But I think there's a step before that, which is we need a short description of what this is supposed to do.
Yeah.
Get it into the current doc.
Totally agree. I think that'll save those issues you were mentioning, Matt. If we just had like one page that in one sentence, very accurately describes what it is, that that ideally will get people at least to that baseline we want them to be at.
Right. So I think what we need to do is let us. I propose. We're running out of time. Let's work on the document, and try to get by next week a short and basically tweak the intro so that it explains what it is. I'm hoping for somewhere between a sentence and a page. I mean, like maybe 2 paragraphs or something like that.
Yeah.
But something relatively, few paragraphs. I'll say that. 2 paragraphs. Okay. We'll work on the current Google Doc.
Yeah, I'll just point out that Monday is a U.S. holiday, I believe. I hope.
Yeah.
Maybe. All I know is that a lot of things in my universe are colliding on Thursday because there's a lot of assumptions about people taking Friday off at least.
Yeah.
So point out a lot of people might be unavailable. People are taking advantage of that long weekend.
Yeah, here's what I would say. Send out the doodle poll next week. I would say maybe late next week, next Monday. So basically, let's get the short description. What is this thing? And then send a doodle poll and say, hey, we've been talking about making this thing. If you're interested, please join and we'll talk about it. Does that seem like a way forward? And then basically weekly meetings from then, weekly meetings to complete.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yep.
Does that sound like a process forward?
Sounds reasonable.
Okay. All right. We're at time, so I guess we got to go away. So good to see everybody.
Likewise. Take care, Al.
Thanks, everybody.